Welcome into the latest edition of Defining Numbers, delivered by FedEx, alongside Moreno, Steve Nicol, and Sebastian Salazar. We're joining you from the ESPN FC studios. Good time, gentlemen, for us to use some stats, some numbers, to make some very, very difficult choices out of the world of football. We'll start actually with a matchup that we're going to see in the Champions League semifinals between Real Madrid and Manchester City. A matchup out of midfield, the playmakers, the string pullers, Luka Modric and Kevin De Bruyne, the guys who provide the assists. Brutal choice here, Ale, but if you had to choose between one of these two, who are you taking right now?
It's not that brutal to me. I'm going to go with Luka Modric. He is critical to the success of Real Madrid. And if you needed any more evidence, well, I have to tell you, watch the last 30 minutes against PSG and watch what he was able to do and had to do, was forced to do in the second half against Chelsea in the second leg. The outside of the foot, right foot ball into Rodrigo, that was so necessary and so key for Real Madrid to have any opportunity to be able to advance. That was special. That was delicious. But it wasn't the most impressive thing for me. Is the leadership that he displayed in effort, in presence, in character, in being able to tackle the ball when he was called upon to do that, and then having still the presence of mind to be able to distribute the ball in a moment in which Real Madrid really needed that from him.
Modric over De Bruyne. Stevie, you agree?
No. Listen, I can see why Modric is in the equation, and you certainly can't fault, particularly the cross for Vinicius Jr. But I would say overall, De Bruyne is way more important. You know, we could argue that Manchester City are the best football side in the world, right? But I'll tell you what, you take Kevin De Bruyne out that team, they lose a chunk. And the only thing I would say about Modric over the course of this season and maybe a bit of last is that sometimes when he hasn't played, you haven't noticed it as much. Now, I'm not trying to down Modric.
It kind of sounded like it.
I'm just saying that the difference is that the best team in the world possibly doesn't look the same without one guy. And for me, that's De Bruyne.
Right. It's a tough choice. So is our next one. It's a little bit further up the field.
It's not a bad choice.
No, you're not going to make a bad choice with any of them.
No, you're right both ways.
Yeah. So our next one is a couple of young guys, both 21, Vinicius Jr. and Phil Foden. Ale, I guess the big difference here, at least in terms of productivity, is the goals for Vinicius Jr. this season.
Yeah, and I look at Vinicius Jr. and I'm going to take him over Phil Foden. And the reason I do that is because I think he is more of an impact player on the field. Every time he gets the ball, and certainly we have seen that, and we saw that much more so earlier in the year than we're doing now, but every time he gets the ball, he is going to go and put pressure on a defender to make a decision. 1v1 situations, he is a defender's nightmare. He can take it to the inside, he can take it to the outside. He has added quality to his final ball. We saw the service that he put into Karim Benzema in that second leg against Chelsea. There is maturity to his game, there is productivity to his game, and he is getting to play all the time. He's always out there in the starting 11. That's not always the case for Phil Foden. As much as I like him, I'm going to take Vinicius Jr.
All right, Stevie, never an easy choice. Who you got, Vinny or Foden?
I'm absolutely going with Vinny.
You're with Ale here.
Yeah, I get the impression that the Vinicius Jr. is the finished article. You know, I don't think there's anything he can't do, and I don't think there's anything... Listen, players always talk about improving all the time, but I think the only thing that he needs to improve on is the experience part in his brain, because as far as his talent, I mean, he can run past players, he can dribble past players. His finishing has gone from 0 to 100 in the past 12 months, in my opinion. And if I'm a defender, okay, today, Stephen, you have a choice of playing against Vinicius Jr. or Phil Foden. Well, I don't want anything to do with Vinicius right now. So I absolutely go with him. As good as Foden is, I don't think we yet know where his best position is, whether it's in that front three or whether it's deeper in the middle of the park. So I think Vinicius is further ahead in his development, no question, and I would take him all day.
All right, we focused on the players. What about the managers? 4 left and 4 pretty good ones at this stage of the Champions League. Of course, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Carlo Ancelotti, and Unai Emery. Unai Emery, the only one of those 4 who has yet to win a Champions League. Ale, of that group, who do you trust the most?
Oh, boy. There's plenty there to pick from. From a player's perspective, I'm going to suggest, and this is merely a personal choice, I'm going to suggest that it seems to be far more fun to play for Jurgen Klopp than anybody else in this group. That the back and forth with Jurgen Klopp, I think, would allow me to find whatever is it that would be my potential. I understand the learning experience that it would be with Pep Guardiola, and I understand that Carlo Ancelotti, with all his success, would be able, in his quiet ways, will be able to also provide that experience. I'm not even mentioning Unai Emery, who has done so well in Europe, but I'm going to say Jurgen Klopp because I think the manager-player relationship there is special.
Ale, you're talking about the emotions. What about the tactics, Stevie? If you had one game, you had one manager to get you through one game, who from that list would you go with?
Oh, you try to put words in my mouth. Yeah. Listen, I mean, no disrespect to Unai Emery, and certainly Ancelotti, my goodness, what a career he's had. But in Klopp and Pep, I don't think you can separate them. Mm-hmm. As far as the two teams are concerned, as far as talent's concerned, I don't think you can separate them. Yes, they play a different way, but they play a different way because of the players that they have. So it's very difficult to separate the two managers.
But there is the
knock on. Hold on,
okay.
Calm down.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go with Ali 100% because I think the difference for a player is, yes, you see the serious side of both of them. Yes, you see Klopp losing his temper. Yes, you see Pep losing his temper. But the one thing you don't see is Pep throwing in any of the other side of it. So I think as a player, I'm 100% with Ali. I would choose Klopp just because of the yin and yang. I think a serious manager, 100% of the time, can wear you down.
No, I just look at Jurgen Klopp, and not that I am a big fan of doing this on my daily life, but it just feels like it's the sort of guy that you can have a beer with. And a guy that you can have a fun conversation outside of the game, a guy who can potentially put the ball away for a little while, and when he can actually talk about life, that you can have that sort of relationship. And while you may think, well, is that important for a manager to have? I think for players it is. Yeah. That you relate, he is your boss, but you want to relate to your boss as well. That you have an open communication, and while you respect that he's the boss and he's going to make the decisions and it's going to be tough decisions, that we have a relationship that goes beyond, hey, you're just going to play in this position and this is the job that you're doing and I'll see you after the game. I think Jurgen Klopp seems to have that better than Pep Guardiola does.
All right, that'll do it for us here in the ESPN FC studio. So much to look forward to in the Champions League semifinals. This has been Defining Numbers, delivered by FedEx.